Are the junior doctors' strikes finally coming to an end? After nearly 1.5 million cancelled appointments and operations, a meeting with Health Secretary Wes Streeting has been hailed as a positive first step. The long-running dispute over pay now seems less antagonistic, with no further strike action planned. However, as the Health Secretary stands firm against the demands for a 35% pay rise, the question remains, how long will peace last between the two parties? Well, I'm joined now by my panel, former editor of The Sun, Kelvin MacKenzie, and the PR consultant and former Labour aide, Stella Santikadu. Kelvin, was this all a sort of stitch-up? Were the Tories so unpopular that the junior doctors basically caused a strike to stymie the Tories? Now the Tories have gone, they don't really care, and they never expected 35%.
Well, you have to wonder about what makes doctors tick anyway, the idea that they're prepared to let people die in order to get a pay rise. I mean, I'm so old, I can remember the miners' strike and thinking how revolting that was, leaving old people, you know, cold in order to make money. But the doctors are a new kind of beast. I'll be honest with you, a shocker. In relation to whether they are entitled to more money, I don't think there's any doubt about that. They have slipped right down the ladder. I mean, the truth about the matter is that most of the plumbers, bricklayers, I'm delighted to say this, by the way, the plumbers, bricklayers, chippies and the like are making more money than 90% of even at the top end of it, which is 90,000. So things have changed. Their status in society, which they've damaged themselves, has also been affected, I think, over this last 14 years. The question is, the one that Wes Streeting made before he decided that they were quite good guys, which was, if we decide to give you 35%, how long do you think the queue will be outside my door and every state union door for similar money? And so the nurses, they might argue that the 5% they took was quite wrong and that they should have got more. And then you get every state employee saying, we're going to do this to you, we're going to do that to you. So it's a very tricky moment they're in. But if you're a trade union and you only have one employer, if you're the BMA and you're employed by the NHS, what do you expect? A, inefficiency, and B, punch-ups like this. Why don't they actually say, actually, I've got a big skill to offer, I'll put it on the private market. Then they could earn any amount of money they like. And actually, the clever ones are currently doing this all the time, and they're making absolute fortunes. So I would extend it. Why don't we start breaking up the NHS, which clearly has got too big and it's too expensive?
Stella, on the pay, this is a real test for Labour, isn't it? Because historically Labour governments have wanted to give in to union demands and have found that that's undermined their whole economic strategy. They seem to have paused the strikes. If they don't give the 35%, if the strikes come back, how damaging would that be?
Wes Streeting had a very positive meeting today. He came out with in very good spirits, and he said that there is likely going to be an agreement. I think what is likely going to happen is they will have a multi-year agreement where they decide that eventually they will receive the pay that they've asked for, but for the time being it's going to be something a bit more modest, say 13-14%. Now, I have a question for people like you, Kelvin, who are anti-immigration. You want to see reduced immigration. And
I'm not anti-immigration. I'm against illegal immigration, actually.
You are
I'm
hostile.
Not against
you want to see immigration. You
no, I want less of it. I want less of it, to be honest.
Exactly. Very nice.
Why? Are you in favour of open borders? Are you in favour of open borders?
You want less
Are you in favour of open borders?
No, I'm not, Kelvin.
All right.
You want reduced legal immigration. At the same time,
I want limited immigration where possible.
You had your segment. Let me finish, Kelvin.
Okay.
You want reduced legal immigration.
I do.
At the same time, you're hostile to trade unions and you frown upon the junior doctors who are asking for a better pay.
I'm hostile to the actions that they take.
You don't want foreign doctors. You don't want to pay British doctors a fair pay and something that is comparable to what they would be getting paid if they moved, if they emigrated, which would help your net zero migration
If they went into private industry, they would make an absolute load of money. So you just pay a check
and who
rather
is
than
going
pay the
to
tax
treat
through
the
the taxes.
British people? Who is going to treat the British people? You don't want to pay the British doctors.
Lots of people out there.
You don't want to let the foreign doctors come in. Do you just want British people to Paris?
Do I want what? Sorry.
Do you just want them to perish? You just want
I think we should have a form of insurance. It couldn't be any worse than the current NHS, which is honestly killing. The doctors are actually quite enjoying killing your old mum. Actually, not your old mum, but my old mum, because they prefer to have the money than actually to treat people properly. And that is an absolute shocker. It may not come as a shock to you that a doctor would actually walk off the job, but it comes as a shock to me.
So they walk off because they don't want... OK, so what's your solution then, Kelvin? They walk off because they want higher pay. They go into the private sector.
Well, they got 10% last time.
You have Nigel Farage as Prime Minister. He doesn't want to have the foreign doctors because he cares so much about the Nigerian and the African countries.
No, it's got nothing to do with that.
They don't want to take away their doctors.
So you're the one that's obsessed about race.
We don't have any doctors here.
You're obsessed about race.
The waiting list, they get longer and longer and longer. Amazing.
Well, no, it won't do, actually. It's going to get shorter and shorter because they're going to go to private industry, actually. So you should say, thank God that we've got private industry in our country.
What is the average British person going to do who cannot afford to go to the private sector for their health care?
As we do in Ireland. As we do in Ireland. In Ireland, the poor don't pay.
But actually, Wes Streeting is thinking of bringing in more private activity in the health service. So he's doing what Kelvin wants. So your hard left government isn't going to be entirely NHS
Nobody
funded
hard
for
left
everything.
in this government, and I have no problem with using the private sector in a limited and productive way when it is useful for us. I don't want to see the public sector being sold off for parts to the private sector, but when you have an emergency, when you have the waiting lists that we have right now, I see nothing wrong with using the private sector when necessary. There are good things about the private sector. It's not always bad.
Yeah, good. I'd like to see the whole of the private sector run the NHS. It'd be a lot more efficient. Everybody gets paid a lot more money. We pay through insurance, and the insurance can be put against our taxes, and the very poor, they don't pay. It works in Ireland, fine. Works in Australia, fine.